Good evening. How are you, Judith? All good? Good evening, Marianne. So as always, it gives a few minutes. I'm just going to open it up on my tablet as well so I can use a whiteboard. No, not. Okay, so. Doesn't look like it. Hey, Sean.
Hey, John. How's things?
Cool. So I'm just going to give it a few moments. Let's, whoever's going to come on. How can I do this? Make life easy. There we go. Perfect. Okay, so I am going to get started. So, hey, Nicola, how are you? Very jealous. I just got a email from Ursula. She can't make. She got vaccinated today. I'm so jealous. Vaccinate everyone as quick as possible. Come on. All right, so. I'm wearing a hat because my hair is just absolutely crazy. Simple as that. Although the kind of like the hat now defeats the purpose of wearing the hat as soon as I've revealed all. But anyway, so I'm going to get cracking onto it. Really enjoyed your podcast. Yeah, Sean, we're going to do more because I forgot, I haven't said Sean yet. I got some feedback. Sean, you're a great interviewer, apparently. You're a great interviewer. But I think that's largely part because you have a good understanding of the subject in terms of mindset and stuff like that as well. You've done trainings, a lot of trainings in that. I think I'm going to get Sean on to do some mindset training and stuff like that. Good to hear from another perspective as well. So, no, not advanced sharing, just simple sharing. Nothing advanced about tonight. Perfect. And then, oh, where am I going? Present. There we go. Perfect. Okay, so finding leverage to build massive momentum. And essentially, in a nutshell, you need a bigger why. So one of the things that, let's say I had Owen on, I was chatting to him about our about motivation and stuff like that. And the big difference between motivation and discipline is discipline is having your kind of strategies, your plan in place so that even if you don't feel like it, you still get, kind of something done. So you keep your momentum going. But it's very hard to build that momentum if we don't have the motivation in the first place. So that's what I want to kind of talk about. Is kind of like, here's how you kind of build your motivation. And one of the big things is that, like I said in the email earlier, is like you can't learn to swim on dry land, which essentially means that as we talk about this and all the time, but about it, we are giving you lots of theory, but that doesn't actually do anything for you. Okay, it's nice to get the knowledge, but if you're not using that knowledge, then you are going to have do you know what I mean? You're not going to create the momentum. You're not going to actually kind of get going just by getting the knowledge. You have to actually use the knowledge and do something with it. So first thing is why? And the reason I ask this is like why a bigger why? So like we all know like health and fitness is important to us. You know what I mean? Hands up if health and fitness is important to you. Being healthy and fit is important to you. We're all going to say yes, it is. But we don't act that way very, very, very often. Our behaviors don't actually match that kind of, let's say, the value we might have around health or fitness. And there's a reason why, and that's what I'm going to go through with this. But it's kind of like we're always telling ourselves, I'll do it when. When the time is right, I'll do it later, I'll do it, let's say, after lockdown, I'll do it, blah, blah, blah. But you and I both knows that, like, if there's things that we've been putting off doing, or if there's things that we want to do and we struggle to get them and achieve them and stuff like that, and we're talking about health and fitness kind of purely from here, is that there's always a reason. Do you know what I mean? We're always coming up with an excuse. Owen talked about it, is like they can be valid reasons, but at the end of the day, they're still excuses. So one of the things is that it's like this whole oxygen mask analogy. So when we're on a plane and they give us a plane, an aeroplane, there's things that fly in the sky that nobody's been on in over a year. So when we're on a plane, they ask us, so if you're with a child, they say, please attend to your mask first before your child's. So this is kind of one of the things, is what I want you to actually do stuff tonight, is that I want you to tend to your mask, okay? Put your mask on first. That's what tonight is about, okay? Or tomorrow, or whenever you're listening to it right now, okay? So that's why I want you to get pen and paper to actually do something, which is essentially you're putting on your oxygen mask so that you can tend to your child. Your child could be work, your family, other commitments, whatever it is, the rest of your life. But it essentially says, what I want to do is kind of, as I said, get you doing stuff tonight. So one of the good quote by Friedrich Nietzsche is, he who has a why to live can bear almost any how. And I spoke about Sean, about Viktor Frankl on the podcast, Man's Search for Meaning. And again, it was a similar thing, is that, like, if we can place a meaning and a purpose to doing things, and again, this coming from Nietzsche, I'd probably even change this as not who has a why, because we all have a why, but he who knows their why intimately. So he who knows their why intimately can bear almost anyhow. Okay, so tonight I want you to get intimate with ourselves, okay, in terms of really deep dive into the why behind it. It's not just, I want to lose weight, or I'd like to do this, or I'd like to be a bit fitter, or blah, blah, blah. And when I spoke to Sean, he asked me about my goals and or how we're going to go about them, and I always start at the end of mine. I just went off into this spiel, like I'm working backwards and stuff like that, but not always. There's one key component missing, and that's the actual getting started part. Is before you even have the plan, sometimes we're just not motivated to even have the plan, or to even, kind of like be bothered kind of setting it up or whatever like that. It's like, so this is kind of that missing component. So when it comes to motivation, we're either motivated towards pleasure or away from pain, okay? And as Owen said in the interview that I did with him, the pain part of things is something that people often neglect. So it's like, what's the pleasure? Oh, I'd lose weight and I'd have these nicer clothes and I'd look good on a beach, or I'd, be a bit more self-confident, and, these kind of things, all these pleasurable things. But sometimes those things are so far away that they're not as motivating, that we need a push rather than a pull, okay? So we need something to push us, shove us, kick us up the ass, okay? Which is essentially, what are we motivated away from? What is the pain aspect of it, okay? So we'll go through that. Obviously, we need discipline then to keep going. So again, motivation and discipline were both needed. But it's important that we have something to be disciplined towards, okay? So you can't be disciplined if you don't have a plan to be disciplined to. So these are kind of things that you're going to kind of lay out on a daily basis. I'll walk you through what I'm doing in terms of my goal. I'm using myself as a case study for this so that you can kind of see it in action, and then you can kind of do it as well. And you obviously need an outcome or an end point. You need to know whether you're actually making progress, achieving it or not, okay? So this, again, it's an end point because it's not really an end point. There's always going to be this journey of self-discovery and stuff like that, but something that we can kind of go is, okay, yes, I've gotten really close, or I've achieved that, or whatever. So for example, that's my previous end point was to get initially to get 100 kilos. I changed my end point to get to 16, which is an extra 1.6 kilos, which nearly absolutely killed me trying to get to. It was it really had a bad effect on my mindset, because it was like, get to 100, get to 100, get to 100, yes, got to 100. Get to 101.6, get to 101.6, get to 101.6. But I persevered, and there was no motivation involved in all of that. It was just literally perseverance and discipline just to do it and get over the end point. So you need to know whether you've achieved it or not. So this is the whole pain pleasure thing, leverage. Okay. So like I said, sometimes what we're working towards isn't as motivating because there's not enough leverage to pull us towards it yet. Okay. And then we can create more leverage around that, and we will kind of work on kind of doing that a little bit later. But the push side of the things, the pain side of the things, can often be more leverage to get you going. Oftentimes I've sat in front of people who wanted to join the gym, and I'm kind of like, okay, so like why are you here? Why have you come? Kind of, applied to join the gym, inquired about joining the gym, and they're like, oh, I'm just sick of blah blah blah. I'm fed up with, they're getting to a point where they're just like, enough is enough, and something needs to change. Now, that's what essentially, if we can kind of build leverage, is it means that when she pushes down on the effort, that she doesn't actually have to do a huge amount of effort, that rock's just going to move with enough leverage. If there's not enough leverage, she'll push and push and push and push. Like if she's kind of way down, where's my pointer? Oh, they changed this one, so I don't have a pointer. It's somewhere, but I'm not going to figure it out. So essentially, if that lever is smaller, she's got to put in so much effort, and that's not going to move. She's not going to create enough leverage. When we have enough leverage, you need less effort. That's the big thing. When you have enough leverage, you need less effort. And the big thing is that if she just flings that down again, very little effort, that rock's going to go flying. It's going to have momentum. Again, so that's the big thing I want to kind of impress upon you about, is that leverage. The key is leverage. It's essentially, we want to turn our kind of I want to, I'd like to, I shoulds into I musts, or I desire, or whatever word is more impactful and more driven for you, rather than I'd like to do this, or I should really lose weight, or I should really blah, blah, blah. That makes sense, yeah? And I said, once you have momentum, things become a lot easier once you have that kind of bit build up in place. So when we're looking at pain, is us Irish have a very sure it'll be grand, you know what I mean, thing. And it's something that I've kind of, I don't know if I coined this term, but evolutionary optimism. And essentially is like, I remember reading about the migration of man as we evolved. And essentially we have ended up in Ireland as like one of the furthest point west man could have gone, right? He couldn't go any further. So our ancestors are the Asher I'll Be Grand group. So they're venturing off into the unknown. And basically the only way to do that is with an optimistic mind going, sure, it'll be grand, or we'll see what happens, or we'll go. So as I said, we were the explorers, the ones that really pushed the boundary, or our ancestors certainly were. So and again, there is a kind of theory in term, perhaps genetically, it's kind of hardwired into us. But we've got to kind of, let's say, kind of take our focus off the Asher it'll be grand side of things, because what if it's not? So this is where the kind of making the pain of not doing something greater than the pain of actually doing it. So when it comes to the pain of doing it, the big thing, the big key is that most people big up the challenges around actually making going working towards the goals that they want. Again, whether it's losing weight, getting fitter, getting stronger, whatever it is, the pain of doing it. And to give you an example, is I've often gone through periods of where with, let's say, kind of physical pain, is that it's like, and I spoke about this as well, it's like that I'm in pain. So if I do exercise, I'm going to be in more pain, and therefore it's kind of holding me back. So the pain of actually doing exercise and trying to get looser and trying to strengthen up, I always had a bit of this kind of pain that I had to go through in order to get it, okay? And like actual physical pain. But what I've done, and I spoke about this as well with Sean, is that I just basically flipped it in terms of, well, I'm going to be in pain anyway. So I might as well be in pain and fit and strong. And invariably, if I stay fit and strong, I'm going to be in less pain. It's certainly that if I leave a big gap between training, you know what I mean? If I, I've had periods where I've gone, a month off, 6 weeks off, and not done very much at all. And it's the getting back side of things after that. I think Owen spoke about it as well, as like the first couple of runs that if he ever had a break from training, that's why you discipline, just to keep the consistency of exercise going and going and going. So the same with this is that I basically essentially made the pain of not doing anything greater than the pain of actually doing it. Does that make sense? I.e., if I don't do this, I'm going to be weak, I'm going to be blah, 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 I'm going to be, unfit, I'm not going to be a good example, all these different things. The pain of staying where I am, I made it much greater than the pain of actually taking steps towards and kind of essentially looking after myself. So before we get to Simon Says, what I want to do is have you thinking about the pain of doing, okay? I want you to think about the pain of doing. And essentially the pain of whatever it is that you have on your mind in terms of, okay, I'd like to, I want to lose weight, I want to get fitter, I want to blah, 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 whatever it is. What is your pain of doing? So write that down. What is your pain of doing? Now, you should be able to come up with at least 5. Your pain of actually doing. Again, I kind of talked about mine. It was almost like there was a fear there. A fear of, oh, it's going to hurt, it's going to blah, blah, whatever. So what is your pain of doing? And again, try and come up with at least 3 to 5. Feel free to keep going until 10 or 20. The more of those you can get, the better, because it's quite a, you're going to basically essentially create an awareness of these things that you're kind of like, okay, now I know what my pain of doing is. How do I make my pain of not doing greater than that? But if you don't have the full awareness of this, and this is where I went and talk about knowing your why intimately, is like we all kind of tell ourselves, oh, I know what I should do, but I just don't do it. You have an idea of what you should do, but you never really actually fully 100% actually, let me work on this. Let me put this oxygen mask on right now and actually really deep dive into it. So you can, I said, bring that awareness up much more. And once you have more awareness of it, then you can change it. Okay, just share one of them with me then. Pop it in the chat box and just kind of share one of them with me in the chat box. So pop one of them in the chat box for me. Nice one. I won't be able to ever treat myself again. So restriction. Do you know what I mean? That would be kind of, we'll put that under, okay, restriction, the pain of restriction. There's fear of failure. A lot of people will go putting in more effort, depriving yourself. So those kind of things, again, it's kind of like, especially with, let's say, the fear of failure one, it's kind of like a lot of people don't start because it's like, oh, I won't set that goal because just in case I don't achieve it, or I won't do this just in case. Yeah, and again, the fear of failing to stick to it, perfect, you know what I mean? So with all these, as I said, is what we can do is we can make the pain of not doing it, and we'll do that in a moment. Don't see results quick enough. So again, it's kind of frustration. putting in the effort, I think would be a good one that would fit in that. So one of the things is that, here's the thing, is that if we don't even try, you're do you know what I mean? Like, I can't ever treat myself again. Well, let's say you use that as an example, Judith, that if you don't even try, every time you treat yourself, how are you going to feel? Guilty, right? I can read your mind. Do you know what I mean? So here's the thing is that there's always a consequence. Do you know what I mean? To staying where we are now. It's not this all kind of, I'll put it in the future, I'll never be able to treat myself. Well, here's the thing is like, you're not really going to be able to treat yourself now. Because all those treats are going to come with some form of, especially if you're not working towards your goals. I mean, anytime you'd have a treat, you're kind of like, oh, I shouldn't really have this, blah, blah, blah. Shouldn't have had that yesterday. All this kind of, we beat ourselves up, and it comes with that guilt. So one pain of eating in a calorie deficit is the fear of failing to stick to it yet again. Now, again, the consequences of failing to stick to a calorie deficit would be not losing weight, right, Sean? So if you don't even try to get into a calorie deficit, you're not going to lose weight. Right? As I said, there's always the opposite side of things, and it's the exact same. It's not opposite. In fact, it's the exact same. If we stay where we are, we already have what we don't want. Does that make sense? We already have what we don't want. That pain of not doing, or the pain of doing, we already actually have it. I don't see results quick enough, so you don't try. So if you don't try, then you're not going to get results. You're already not getting results. Again, it's a whole thing. I don't see results quick enough. Well, you're not getting quick results now anyway. So that's the key, guys, is that the pain of doing, the pain of doing is essentially, we're already experiencing it. And what we need to do is kind of focus on is, okay, what is the pain of not doing it? What is the pain of not doing it? Now, here's a little game I want you to play, okay? So Simon Says. Do we all know how to play Simon Says? Give me a nod. Cool. Okay. I'm going to be Simon. So Simon says, touch your left nostril with your finger. Perfect. I can't see the others, but I can see Sean and Judith, so that's all good. Okay. So there's Nicola. Good stuff. So Simon says, scratch your right ear and rub your head. So those of you who rubbed your head, you're out. Simon said scratch your ear. He didn't say rub your head. Okay? So I thought we knew how to do this. You're all right? So now here's we go, okay? Bit of fun. Right, do you want to play again? I'll give you a second chance. Okay, because that only lasted one round. You're only passed one round. So Simon says, touch your left nostril and scratch your right nose. Perfect. There we go. Okay, now you're learning. Okay. Simon says, put your right hand on your head. Sean and Nicola, I can see you took your left finger off your nose. Simon didn't say take your left finger off your nose, so you guys are out. So Judith, you win. Out of everyone I can see, okay? So here we go, right? Hands up who had fun doing that. A bit of fun, okay? It wasn't the most wonderful thing in the world, but a bit of fun doing that. And hands up who kind of would like to do it again, just to see if we could get another round in. We're like, oh, damn it, a bit frustrated, right? Okay, you were kind of like, oh, you got me, right? A bit annoyed with that, right? That got me, okay? You all failed doing that, apart from Judith who won miserably. But that's what failure is. The only way we did it the first time, what happened the second time you did it? You did it better because you failed the first time. So one of the things is that a lot of this is around is like, if it doesn't work, if I don't get results fast enough, all these kind of things, is that the only way to get good at this is to keep doing it and to fail and fail and fail and fail and fail. But don't call your failures, call them feedback. So there's no such thing as failure, there's only feedback, okay? So when we did Simon Says, you got feedback from me saying, no, that was wrong. You're meant to do it when Simon says only. and you did it the next time and you got it, okay? And then again, if we played it again, would you reckon you do a bit better next time? Yeah, we'd be very competitive. Do you know what I mean? To be uber competitive, we'd probably be here all night. So that's the key with don't be afraid of failure. Don't be afraid of, not being able to stick with something, blah, blah, blah. You're not meant to be able to do it 100% of the time. In fact, I heard a quote during the week is that if you already know how to achieve your goal isn't hard enough. Do you know what I mean? Because it's not inspiring enough. You're like, I know how to do it. It's actually something to kind of get a bit more drive and a bit more want into it. Now, this next part here is a bit painful, uncomfortable, but again, it's about pain. So pain and painfulness. So here's how we kind of get the pain, go deep diving into the pain of not doing. Okay. So in 6 months' time, if you're still the same or worse off, what's the worst thing that could have happened? So in 6 months' time, if you're still the same or worse off, what's the worst thing that could have happened? So this is where you've got to be pessimistic, okay? Is get rid of the optimism and go, sure, it'll be grand, blah, blah, blah. What's actually the worst thing that could have happened if you're the same or worse off? Now, I'm going to go into this a little bit more in depth with some other questions to help you kind of really kind of get some answers for that. But then we kind of go into, okay, so we got 6 months in 1 year. What's the worst? So it's 6 months in 1 year's time. If you're still the same or worse off, what's the worst thing that could have happened? In 5 years, I'm going to give you my example as kind of well as we go through this. In 10 years, in 20 years, or would you make it? I don't make it 20 years in terms of basically, I'm not here. Okay. I've become an alcoholic and all sorts of stuff. Right. But I joke about it, but you can create this leverage, i.e. this drive that, no, I don't want to do this. I don't want to stay where I am because there are consequences that might happen. And who's to say that they're not going to happen? Do you know what I mean? We can all be all positive and airy-fairy and stuff like that, but sometimes, as I said, we don't know what the future holds. We can only control right now. So let's see if this is where I have. So for me, that this basically ends up with me being essentially, if I don't do what I'm kind of walking through tonight in terms of getting lean and kind of getting a photo shoot before my 40th and so on, I'll essentially end up, okay, what if I'm still the same or worse off? But I'm going to be worse off because essentially if I don't do that, what does that mean? It means I've basically given up. It means I've probably stopped exercising. It means I'm still in pain and I'm probably taking painkillers. It means I've gotten out of shape. It means I've lost all the muscle that I've worked hard for, and I'll basically be back to kind of, between 90, 95 kilos or something like that, or worse off. And again, that's 6 months' time. But in a year's time, what's the worst that could happen? Well, that I've given up on fitness completely, and that I've kind of thrown in the towel, and I've kind of stopped even bothering. In the 6 months' time, I've told you about my goals and stuff like that. So I'd feel like a failure. I'd be embarrassed. I'd be ashamed of myself. And this is where kind of like deep diving is, what's the worst that could happen? And again, it's like, do I want that to happen? Absolutely 100%. No, I don't want any part of that. Okay. That gives me a drive to kind of go, I was right. I want, a part of my drive to keep me going. Now, for some people, this will be very powerful, and for others, it won't be as powerful as the stuff that might pull you towards your goal. But it's not something that necessarily that you should just kind of dismiss, because as I said, it can give you a light a fire under your ass. Say, absolutely not. I refuse to accept those standards. But the great thing about this is that you can create your 6 months, your 1 year. You don't have to go as far as me, that I turn into an alcoholic, go bankrupt with the gym, all this kind of sort of stuff, and end up basically dying within 20 years. But as I said, is you can do it. As like, if I don't do it, I'll end up sick, I'll end up blah, 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 I'll end up whatever it is. So I'm going to come through a couple of questions that are going to be a little bit help us with that specifically as we go through this. But first of all, then we go through specifics. So this is now kind of, let's say, coming into, okay, what do we specifically want? This can be both tangible and intangible. Okay, so tangible would be I want to lose X amount of weight. So my tangible results is I want to get from 14% to 10% body fat by the 1st of June. And then I want to get to 8% by 29th of July or the week beforehand or whatever, which is my birthday. So that's the tangible results, but the intangible results is how I want to feel and look, etc. Now, how do I know if how do you know if you're making progress? That's where certain things like the tangible results come in. How do you know if you're making progress? Because feelings are very misleading. Can't tell you the amount of times that people have walked into the testing room to do the in-body. They're like, oh, I'm feeling fat today, and this isn't going to look good. This isn't going to be good. And they'll hop on the scales, and lo and behold, they'll have lost weight. And they're like, how the hell did that happen? The opposite also happens. Oh, I'm excited to do this. I've been really good all week, and they hop on scales. What? I haven't done anything. I gained a pound. You know, and again, is feelings are facts. We've got to deal in facts. We've got to deal in actual facts. Basically, it's like, what is working? Is this working? How do I measure progress? Okay. And this can be done. It doesn't have to be done on a certain thing like scale weight or body fat percentage or anything like that. You define what progress is for you. Okay. In terms of whatever that may be, we'll go through that in terms of setting up your actual goals. But asking better questions, and this comes from NLP. This is a part of a thing called well-formed outcomes, which is essentially how to actually vividly experience the outcomes you want, achieving the outcomes you want, or not achieving the outcomes you want. Basically, this is the kind of, in a nutshell, these 4 questions are going to, and I want you to kind of answer them as I'm going through this, and I'll kind of go through mine as an example. So, what will happen when you get this? Okay, so this is, let's say, the intangible kind of results, stuff you can't really measure, you know, that I want you to go through. So it's more of a kind of an experiential kind of thing, as opposed to what will happen when they get this. I will weigh 10 stone, or, you know, whatever, you know, I'll be 10% body fat. Like for me, I'll be 10% body fat. So what? Do you know what I mean? It's more so, okay, what will happen is I'll have made another achievement, and I'll feel great. Okay, it's another thing that I've actually achieved prior to my 40th, you know, being in the best shape of my life for my 40th. I'll have pictures, you know, to keep, you know, and again as a kind of memento. I'll hopefully inspire others. Certainly set a good example, you know, kind of for Logan in terms of, you know, I constantly trying to work towards goals and achieving goals and stuff like that. I'll have better fitness. I'll have definitely better energy. I'll feel lighter. I'll feel bulletproof. I'll be holiday ready whenever I get to go on my honeymoon. Who knows? But I'll be ready for it. I'll be ready for it. Okay. So that's what will happen when I get this. Now, it's also what will happen as you get this, because it's part of the journey. A lot of the benefits we get from working towards a goal are actually from the journey itself. Do you know what I mean? That we don't just suddenly one day go, boom, I'm fitter. It's I'm getting fitter. Do you know what I mean? I'm getting lighter. It's the whole process. So it's what will happen when you get this, or what will happen as you get this. Okay. So write down 3 or 4 things. What will happen when you get this, or what will happen as you get this? A good thing, and this must be in the positive, because this is positive, what will happen. You can kind of phrase it as, when I achieve my goal, I will blah, 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 blah. So for me, as I went through, it was like, okay, when I, you know, get to 8% body fat, I'll, you know, achieve another achievement. I'll feel great. When I get to 8% body fat, I'll be able to have a photo shoot and get pics to keep, blah, blah, blah. I'll have increased my fitness and energy while doing it. I'll feel lighter. I'll feel bulletproof. Again, it's kind of a big driver for me, as I was one of that term bulletproof. It resonates well with me, and I'll be holiday ready. So write down a couple of them. You don't have to share these with me. These are personal for you. First question's easy. The next ones are harder. So what won't happen when you get this? Okay. Now, when you're writing these, leave gaps, because you'll probably fill these in more. What won't happen when you get this? So what won't happen when you get this? So another way to say is that when you get this, what's not going to happen? So as I said, for me is when I achieve my 8% body fat, I won't feel like a failure. I won't be a bad example. I won't regret not doing it. I won't feel sluggish and out of breath. I won't feel fat around my low back. So they're my I won't when I get this. So when I get this, I won't ... I won't enjoy my holiday as much. So what won't happen when you get this? This one hurts your head a little bit, probably. This next one. What won't happen if you don't get this? What won't happen if you don't get this? So this is essentially, what are you going to miss out on? So if you don't get this, what's not going to happen? What are you going to miss out on? So for me, if I don't get this, I won't inspire others. I won't set a good example. I won't be proud of myself. I won't be lean and fit. I won't be holiday ready. I won't have the pics. I could go on and on and on. And it's an interesting thing is that this is kind of like loss versus gain, this missing out on stuff. There's a theory called loss aversion, or is that if you, generally people will gain more satisfaction from not losing 100 than from gaining 100 euros. So the loss of 100 euros basically deprives someone more than the gain of gaining 100 euros. Once we have it, we don't want to lose it. So that's why it's important to know, what are you missing out on? Because nobody likes to miss out on stuff. We don't like to have that loss. So there's a really important one, is that what won't happen if you don't get this? So if I don't get this, I won't, blah, 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 blah. And then finally, the next one is what will happen if you don't get this? So if I don't get this, I will be out of shape. I will regret it. I'll be embarrassed. I'll be ashamed. I'll feel like a failure. I'll lose muscle. I'll waste my previous efforts. And again, is that me deep diving into this, that spirals out of control. Which essentially for me, because I'm creating that rule for myself, okay, whether or not you think my example there is realistic or not, of me going really in depth over those 20 years and not surviving, is that that's you create your own rules. We do it on the negative side of things for ourselves all the time. I can't do this because I won't be able to do that, because I won't be able to do that. We're putting rules on ourselves all the time. So why not put rules on ourselves that actually empower us and drive us and motivate us and kind of push us to actually want to go after our goals? So if you don't get this, what will happen? If I don't get this, I will, blah, 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 or this will, or whatever. Perfect. Okay, so out of curiosity then, is just rate your increase in motivation. So motivation on a scale of 1 to 10. After doing that, what is your motivation risen by? So if it was a 5, so Sean's gone off the camera. Do you know what I mean? If your motivation, let's say, started, if you felt it was kind of like average 5-ish motivation, has it gone to 6? Has it gone to 7? Has it gone to 8? What does it increase by? Okay, it's because it's increased. Why is it increased? Because you've absolutely vividly experienced the pleasures and pain of achieving or not achieving your goals. Essentially, you created leverage there. Now, doing this once is powerful. Doing it over and over and really deep diving into it is super powerful. It is that leverage that you're talking about, where you're actually kind of come up with awarenesses of yourself, of certain things that you'll put down on paper, and you'll kind of go, wow, yeah, I didn't realize I was missing out on that. Do you know what I mean? That's something that I do not ever want to miss out on. I actually read blah, blah, blah. And again, going deep into it. But it's only going to do, like I said, by action. We don't learn to swim on dry land. You've got to jump in at some stage. Okay, so working back then in terms of, once we have our kind of leverage, okay, we're feeling motivated, I'm driven to go, okay, I want to actually achieve something, whatever it is, that we need to know what the end point is. Then that needs to be broken down into milestones, okay? Now, for me, the word milestones seems like a long, big, drawn out thing. It's too, there's too big a gap between milestones. That metaphor in my head just, it doesn't click. So what about inch stones? Okay, small, tiny little steps. Okay, because here's the thing: is we don't want big steps that are too drawn out to kind of gonna go, oh, it's so far away. It's like, what's the next one? What's the next one? What's the next one? And like I said, it doesn't have to be around weight or body fat percentage or anything like that. We'll go through those are it. But these are essentially goals within goals. Some people will call them process goals. You can call them habits. You can call them steps. You can, whatever it is. But things you can do on a regular basis, whether it's daily or weekly, that you can use as stepping stones, inch stones, stepping stones, better word than inch stones. There's already a word. I don't have to make up one. And that can be easily celebrated, okay? So one of the things, again, Sean mentioned on the podcast is neuroscience has shown that when we tell ourselves, I am making progress, I ticked off this today, it literally releases dopamine in your brain, which is the motivator, it's the drive chemical in our brain, okay? So when you tell yourself, and again, is the big thing is about this is that when I've spoken to people about this, they're like, oh, it doesn't really work, blah, blah, blah. It's like, here's the thing is you, again, it's your brain. You're telling it you're making progress. Now, if you have another voice going, well, it's terrible progress and it's not good enough and it's blah, 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 well, then you're doing the opposite, okay? So you've got to kind of tell yourself that this is progress, 100%. Even if it is a millimeter stone, it's a progress. And as long as you keep telling and showing your brain progress, it's going to want more progress. If you don't show your brain progress, how the hell are you going to think about how are you going to be driven towards achieving something if you never show your brain progress, if you're always focusing on the negative aspects or anything like that? You've got to show your brain the way and tell it that it is actually making progress. So for me, just in terms of, I have numbers. So again, I'm currently 14% body fat. I want to get to 10% body fat, my initial one, by June the 1st. Ultimately what I do is I break that down, right? How long away is that? It's 9 weeks away. So I have basically, in terms of when you're kind of losing body fat, I spoke about body weight percentages, what we should expect to kind of lose about 0.5 to 1% a week of body weight if we want to hold on to enough muscle. And for body fat percentage, it's 0.25 to 0.5% on average a week. So I prolonged my goal by an extra month, my bulking goal. So I basically cut into my cutting goal and obviously getting leaner. So I have less time now than I had initially planned. So I have 9 weeks. And roughly if I hit 0.5% a week, it's 4.5% maximum. I'm really realistically going to lose by the time I get to June the 1st, okay? So I put myself under a little bit of pressure, but it still gives me a bit of buffer, because it's I only need to lose 4%, and I might have already lost some this week anyway, so I've already kind of started, so I'm kind of 9 weeks after this week. So with that, let's say kind of if I kind of use 4.5% as the ultimate. Now, here's the thing is like, if I don't get to 10%, if I get to 10.3 or 10.6, it doesn't really matter. What matters is that I'm trying to get to the 10, okay? It's reaching for the stars. Or reach for the stars, aim for the moon, or aim for the stars, reach for the moon, whichever one it is. I don't know, whichever one's higher, okay? Aim for the stars, you'll reach the moon, or whatever, okay? But essentially is by setting a kind of big goal is that's your ceiling. So if we set oh, well, the whole failure side of things is like, I don't really, I'm not sure if I can do this, or I'm just gonna go for 2% body fat just to make sure I can do it. So if I set 2% body fat, again, for me, it's not enough of a, well, what this would do for me is like, it's not enough of a driver. So yeah, 2%, I could start in a month's time to do that. Do you know what I mean? I'll put it off, because I basically shrunk my ceiling. Now, here's the thing is with that 2% is I can only realistically will get to 2% loss. I won't get 3% or 4% because I've set my goal, I've set my ceiling too low. That's why I'm kind of setting a bigger ceiling, but doing that to motivate you to work hard towards it, as opposed to something that's completely impossible, or do you know what I mean, you're a failure if you don't get it. That's not why we're setting it high. So it's realistic enough for me to aim for 4.5%. Midway point, basically by the end of April, I need to be at 2.5%, somewhere in between there. Okay, so that's why I know is, let's say by the end of April, i.e. in roughly a month's time, I need to be have lost about 2% body fat. So there's how, like, how do I know I'm actually kind of working towards my goals. Now there's also another way of doing this, and before we go about setting this, is rather than looking at the optimistic side of things, is what's the pessimistic side of things. Okay, so one of the big things is that we get derailed when we start working towards, because we don't have a plan to counter what could go wrong. Okay, so the what ifs. Okay, so we all, like, anytime we're feeling motivated, it's like, yes, okay, I'm going to be able to do this. I'm going to set a plan. I'm going to go on a diet. I'm going to exercise 5 days a week, and I'm going to achieve my goal. And okay, I'm going, and then life happens, and then you're like, oh crap, I didn't do that today, or I missed the gym, or I didn't do that. Life gets in the way. So here's the thing: is we need to plan ahead. Shit's going to happen. We need to be as much aware of that as possible, so that we have a plan already in place. The most important thing about your plan is not, what diet am I going to follow and how many meals am I going to eat a day and blah, blah, blah. It's how am I going to overcome the challenges in life? Owen talked about anti-fragility and grit and stuff like that, and perseverance and driving through it. But to make yourself more persistent so that you can actually drive through things, is have a plan to be persistent. What are you going to do? So what are the things? So for you, on your notes, is like, what has gone wrong? What could go wrong? Kind of working towards your goals. And I'm going to sort of throw a load of questions in terms of what could go wrong? What could stop me? What challenges do I have? What's gone wrong in the past? How have I sabotaged myself before? Okay, you don't have to answer them individually. They're all the same question. But if you answer them and you get enough reasons down, then you know what to set your actual process goals for. Okay, rather than, this is my, the perfect diet that I want to follow. This is how many training sessions a week I want to blah, blah, blah. That stuff is essentially, it's actually the easy stuff. The overcoming obstacles and challenges is the much harder thing. So for me, for this is, if I don't hit that 0.5% a week, if I get injured, so my back and my neck, what things, let's say, have gone wrong in the past before, is not feeling like it. I spoke about today, kind of not feeling it at all this morning. If I get poor sleep, if I have an energy slump, again, it's kind of, I still get the odd one, where it literally just feels like the energy is just being sucked from my body. My legs feel so heavy and stuff like that. But I used to get that an awful lot before, and it would, like, literally, sometimes I just go to bed for the whole day. Have a day of recharge or rest or something like that. So hunger and cravings and stuff like that as well, as I'm getting leaner and stuff like that, will be an issue. So they were my things that I've come up with. Okay, so what's gone wrong in the past? How have I sabotaged myself before? What challenges have I had in the past? What has stopped me before? What could stop me in the future? That kind of thing. Now, obviously, just writing them out, but now the idea is to come up with a plan how to actually overcome them. So me not hitting the 0.5% a week is adjust and keep going. I can add in more walking. So one of the things is, and again, this has to be stuff that you're willing and able to do. So one of the big things for me is, I don't want to overload my body with too much exercise, for two main reasons. One, because I don't want to take too much energy away. It's like, kind of, when it comes to fitness, you've got to look at deposits and withdrawals. Okay, so if you need to make more fitness deposits with your training and your nutrition than fitness withdrawals, because if you're constantly withdrawing, if you're trying to push, smash out sessions, and you're left wiped out and physically exhausted and blah blah blah, and you're eating, kind of overly restrictive and everything like that, that's just take, and you're just, that fitness bank account, that energy bank account, whatever you want to call it, is just being depleted and depleted and depleted. So for me, it's like, I know I can't do too much intense training if I want to look after my energy. So again, it's got like going for more walks, reducing my intake. My first thing is that when this happens, and there will be a week when I don't hit that, I'll probably put in a 24-hour fast. Do you know what I mean? So I already know what I'm going to do if I don't hit that 0.5% a week. So the thing is while that is a goal of mine, it's not an expectation. I don't have a right to hit 0.5% a week, even though I know how to do it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to just happen like that. Okay, there's so many different metabolic factors, and I depress you again with actually there's two positive studies, one positive, one negative study there. So as we understand more and more about metabolism, like the stuff we're learning about metabolism more because of the technology involved and how we can measure it and put people in metabolic wards and stuff like that, they're learning more and more and more about metabolism. But I'm kind of discovering that it's almost like if you burn, you have a certain amount of calories that your body's almost like willing to burn on a daily basis. By adding in loads and loads more exercise, it doesn't just add on to the end. It actually starts to eat into your kind of limit. Do you know what I mean? So we don't have this infinite supply of calories that we can burn it on a daily basis. Do you know what I mean? That, you know, so it's when people say it's like, oh, I'm in a calorie deficit because I'm only eating such and such. It's like, well, your body will alter your metabolism. You know, no matter how much exercise you're doing, it'll actually eat into other aspects of your metabolism to keep you within a range. Okay, so that's a kind of a, you know, something where your body likes to fight against you and kind of keep you honest almost. But a good one was that is similar to what we've been talking about, is the weight maintenance side of things. Is that that this whole kind of idea of the metabolism slowing down when we lose weight, is that it generally kind of can rebound when we have periods of weight maintenance and stuff like that. And just another study that I came across that I haven't read fully into it yet. But again, it's just another kind of way to show that it's not all doom and gloom in terms of, you know, this whole kind of all my metabolism slowing down and stuff like that. So injured, so my back and neck, so I got to keep my mobility routine going. If actually it does happen, you know, that's, let's say I'm going to stop myself from my back and neck getting hurt, because I'm going to keep my mobility routine. I'm keeping my mobility routine really simple. You know, you could call it boring, but it's a necessity. Okay, do you know what I mean? It's like, it's a necessity. So there's lots of things like brushing our teeth, you know what I mean? It's boring, we just do it. It's the same routine over and over and over again. We don't give out about that routine. So something for me is just to get that mobility routine, is just not have anything fancy in it. It's just something that, boom, I get it done. Not feeling like it. So first thing is for me is to start journaling again. It's something that I've started in the last week or two. So just writing down more about kind of like the questions I've gone through here with you. Do you know what I mean? Deep diving into kind of what drives me, what are my motivators? Do you know what I mean? What's important to me? What is my leverage? What are my values? You know, things like that I want to kind of, you know, kind of get back into doing that. Yeah, like I've done before. But also as well, not feeling like it, is have the habits and discipline in place so that again, that plan in place so I can be disciplined to it. Poor sleep. So here's my strategy for poor sleep. So in terms of, I can't control what time Logan's going to wake up in the morning, but I can control what time I go to bed. That's the only thing I can control. So it's, again, there's no point in worrying about the morning. And again, it's like, still had that negative self-talk this morning going, oh God, I wish, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, me expecting Logan, a 2.5-year-old, to go, oh, sorry, Dad, I'll go back and sleep another hour for you. Do you know what I mean? He's no idea what time it is. He just knows it's time for toys. But here's one thing that for me, my strategy for this. And Sean asked me about non-negotiables and stuff like that, and this is really becoming non-negotiable for me. So rather than just go to bed early, that is not a plan. You cannot be disciplined to go to bed early, right? It's just, there's nothing to it. It's not specific enough. So for me is, I want to be asleep before 10, which means I want to be in bed by 9:30, which means I want to get ready for bed at 9. So that's just okay. I'll be asleep by 10 o'clock. Again, there's still too much stuff behind that. I am basically going to get ready for bed at 9 p.m. So when I do that, is I know I'll be then in bed by 9:30, even if I get distracted and do stuff, you know, blah, blah, blah. And then again, if I'm in bed by 9:30, I know I'll fall asleep within the half an hour and I'll be asleep before 10 o'clock. And again, even prior to that is like, you know, stop doing whatever I'm doing at 9 o'clock and boom, right, 9 o'clock, time for bed. Does that make sense? So again, it's a much more specific. Now I can be disciplined to that. And for something like that, that's something I can do on a daily basis. That's something that if I'm doing that consistently, that's progress, okay? Because I'm looking after my sleep and my energy. So that's one of those things where I talked about it before. It's like, for me, that I've got to, when I do that, every time I do that, that's a win. It's me telling myself I'm making progress, I'm making progress, I'm making progress. So rather than having to rely on just a number on the scales or something like that to give me that dopamine hit that I'm making progress, or I've lost a pound, great, I'm making progress, is I've ticked off another one of my daily habits. I'm making progress. Okay, that's progress. That's me working and getting closer towards my goals. So again, is setting those things for you. And I think, Sean, you showed about an app you're using where you're getting a little green dot or a green tick for your sequences and stuff like that. But every time you're doing that, you're telling yourself, I'm making progress. I'm making progress. This is bringing me a step closer, a step closer. It's another stepping stone. It's another inch stone, whatever. For energy slump, I need to do some, again, enough cardio to keep my my fitness going, and blood flowing around my body and stuff like that, and take my supplements, take my medication, and drink enough water. Hunger and cravings, get okay with being hungry. Now, this is a big thing. Is that, again, is like, it's like me this morning fighting with the expectation of Logan staying in bed. Is, wishing that you didn't get hungry or wishing that you didn't get cravings when you're on a diet is nonsensical. They're going to happen. They have to happen. You know what I mean? Whether they happen every day or whatever, blah, 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 but hunger and cravings are going to happen at some stage during a process of weight loss. Okay. So I'm not going to kid myself and go, no, if I eat enough protein and vegetables, I'm going to be fine. I'm not going to want any cake or sugar or ice cream or blah, 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 blah at the times when I don't plan on having it. Right. So here's the thing is I have to get okay and accept it, because I have to turn what hunger means. I have to turn it around. Hunger doesn't mean I'm starving. Hunger doesn't mean I'm wasting away. Hunger means I'm burning body fat. Hunger actually is a sign that it's working for me. Do you know what I mean? So it's something that I can actually be okay with hunger and not fight it or resist it. Because if I try and resist it, it's just going to create more stress. And again, it's the same thing with Logan. If I try and resist the time he wakes up or whatever time it is, go, blah, 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 it creates more stress. It creates a bad feeling. I'm making myself feel bad on purpose. And then just, again, a simple thing for me is at 8 o'clock, eat a protein bar or have protein yogurt or something like that. Again, 200 calories, 20 grams of protein. Again, just something enough to just tide me over. But again, as I'm going to bed at 9 o'clock as well, that has an added bonus that I'm not sitting around eating. You know what I mean? 8 o'clock it's a rule that I've made, is like between 8 and half 8. That's my last bit of food. I'm not eating that later after that. That's it. So again, I've made that rule around myself. That's something now that I can go, is when I do it, I tick it off, tick it off, tick it off. I'm making progress, I'm making progress, I'm making progress. I've done another one of my process goals. So essentially, yeah, I just skipped the slide. So it's again, this is where, it's not being, try not to be too optimistic, be pessimistic in terms of stuff's going to go wrong, but what am I going to do when it goes wrong? Now, a couple of things that Owen went through, I'll kind of remind you as well, is he spoke about things like nudges, which are things that kind of like where you're nudging yourself, towards something, as opposed to these big things. So for him, his example was going to the gym, where he just go do a few push-ups and leave. And you might say, well, what's the point in that? And again, it's like he made up the rule for himself that was enough for now. I'm just going to the gym and I'm doing some push-ups. But the thing is, he was putting himself in the environment where he can get fitter. He was giving himself the routine of going to the gym so that in future he can get fitter. So once he created that habit, then when he actually had more time, stuff like that, he could go and do more, or he'd get to the gym, do a few push-ups and go, I'll jump on the bike now. Do you know what I mean? So again, there's little nudges where you don't have to do the big thing. So I don't have to start that big diet. I don't have to blah, blah, blah. I can just do something small. And so what Owen says to me as well is like how to keep the discipline going, especially if we get sick, in terms of fitness. So we get sick and we can't go and exercise, okay? But if we normally, exercise what times, okay, 8:30. So let's say you normally exercise at 8:30 in the evening and you're sick, so you're not going to exercise, you got a headache or something like that. Do something fitness related at that time. So you're telling your brain, you're still associating that time with your fitness time. So it could be listening to a podcast, just watching an exercise, kind of tutorial or something like that, where you can kind of go and you can actually, give your brain that association with the thing that you always did. Or, if you're too sick to do a bigger session, you go for a walk, or you do some mobility, or you do something, but you don't just cut that time, because that basically now is creating a bad habit, i.e. missing a session, or, kind of knocking that time from your schedule. So he spoke also about, the kind of idea that if you're snacking, if you find yourself snacking on when you're watching, a certain program or something like that, or whatever it is, if you get a certain, or you get bored or whatever like that, and then you eat, is actually change what you eat. So don't necessarily stop eating, just change what you're eating or what you're putting in your hand. So it could be, like he said, just drinking a bottle of water instead of eating the packet of crisps or something. But essentially is what you're trying to do is you're trying to change the habit of eating the packet of crisps to a different habit. It could be a packet of carrots, whatever it is. Again, these are called associations. He says you're getting your brain to associate something different with what you used to. I won't go too much into that because that's already in the podcast, and we did with him. We'll kind of go through that. So, that's what I wanted to go through tonight. Have you found that useful? Yes, lots of thumbs up, good stuff. Now, here's the thing: is like I said, is this is initially, again, the first time you do this, you listen to this, or you kind of go through those questions, is you're getting a little glimpse into your kind of psyche, essentially. Okay, but it's not deep enough. Go deeper yourself. Okay, do this again. Kind of watch this back, answer those questions. But they shouldn't be. They're not a once-off thing. It's like motivation is a habit. In order, if you want to feel driven, you have to do the things that drive you. Essentially, kind of think about the things that drive you more often. But if you think about what you normally do, you think about the things that demotivate you. I'm tired, I've no energy, I don't feel I had a big day today, blah, 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 blah. So you're already good at doing the opposite of this. All right. So just instead of doing that stuff, just do this stuff instead. But you got to ask those questions. You got to actually, kind of questions we always ask ourselves, like, oh, why is it so hard to lose weight? Why is it blah, blah, why is it blah, blah? The brain will always answer your questions subconsciously. So if you're putting in these questions, your brain is seeking out answers. So why is it so blah, blah, blah? Your brain will answer as well because you eat too much, or because you blah blah blah, or because you're too lazy, or because you're blah blah blah. Do you know what I mean? Your subconscious will blah blah blah, and that's self-depreciating talk, self-deprecating talk, depreciating. Your brain will always answer those questions. So ask better questions. You ask better questions, you're going to seek out your subconscious, you're giving it a command to seek out better answers. And you get better answers, you're going to create that more leverage and stuff like that we're talking about. But that's the thing, is if you get enough leverage, you can move anything. And as I said, it's like you just need to focus on kind of get to work on what is actually your ultimate drivers. Not it'd be nice to lose weight and to wear different sort of clothes, or blah, 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 or whatever. It's like, what is the ultimate pleasure you will gain, and what is the ultimate pain you will gain? And sometimes that pain is something that we need. It gives us a kick up the ass where we actually focus on what will happen if we don't get it, what won't happen if we don't get it, and what. I always forget the last question as well. But anyway, you get the gist. All right, cool. Does anybody have any questions? You can just unmute yourself if you want to, rather than having to type it in if you do have any questions. No, all good. Perfect. Okay, excellent. Listen, thanks for joining me tonight. I will send on the recording, and good to see you all.
Thanks, John. Have a good evening.
See you later, guys. Cheers.
Thanks, John.